You can't tell me that Horn Dog isn't an archetype and that they don't nail it with the Margus or whoever here.
His class was Horn Dog?
No, I'm...
Welcome to New Game Plus. This is a retro gaming podcast where three guys spend 7 days playing one old game and then we talk about it. My name's Dustin.
My name is Kenny.
Diablo 4 still bad.
This is episode 425, and the question of the week, what is your favorite couch co-op game?
Oh, man. I've said this on the podcast before, I'm pretty sure many times, but it's never going to get trumped for me. GoldenEye for the N64, obviously. Because I would play with friends as a kid, so it was like true couch co-op, don't look at my freaking screen, but I would play more with my dad. And Dustin knows my dad. Kenny may have met him. He's not a gamer. He doesn't care about games. In fact, he probably doesn't like them. But I played Odd Job against him constantly, and he would just lose constantly and have fun. He loves James Bond.
Yeah, because you were cheating.
Yeah, I was. He loves James Bond, and so I think that helped, but it's just good memories. And that game's, I mean, the couch co-op back then was unmatched.
But when's the last time that you played it couch co-op? Like, is that just memories?
Yeah, it would have been back then. But let me, what couch co-op game have I played since then? I can't name many. Maybe Halo for a little bit, but not as much as y'all. So
we played that Superman game couch co-op.
Well, yeah, that was like.
And then everybody raged at us because we had fun together. They were like, y'all don't have fun together. We don't like it when you have fun together.
Is my answer, does that even count? Co-op? It's not co-op. It was multiplayer.
Yeah, no.
We
that's
were
like,
couch co-oping.
That's like saying Hades is a good co-op game because y'all directed me.
It works. We do it couch co-op.
I know, but
even if we're not on a couch together.
I don't know if those can be our answer. Kenny.
Okay, I have three answers because I realized I was one more. There were two.
Three's better than zero.
Yeah, but it is.
Classic, like growing up, like retro. One of the TMNT games. Like those are just great. Work great for multiplayer.
One?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to choose. I have too many other answers.
So that is worse than no answer for me, but okay.
It's not.
Yeah.
Second, and this is just like the most recent couch co-op, and Nolan, you may be salty about this, I don't know, but Diablo 3 is a great couch co-op game.
Elaborate. With your wife? How did you...
Yeah. Played together.
I feel that. Okay.
Same screen, two characters, being cooperative.
Oh, absolutely. That game's great that.
It's a really good game for it, and it's a fun game.
G4.
Like it's kind of light. Like I really had a good time with that one. But and I had forgotten the low hanging fruit. Nothing will be better than Halo 2 as a couch co-op game ever.
Why did I not put that on my list? I
know
myself.
This should have made your list too. I didn't put it
ever.
until Nolan said Halo, and then I was like, well, obviously I have to say that because like life defining memories for that game.
I'm glad you said it. I still stand by my answer because it is my favorite couch co-op experience within the last decade.
Okay.
Now, admittedly, couch co-op is not what it used to be, and
sure.
Our days of extensive couch co-op are largely in the past, but Overcooked. Have either of you gotten to experience that?
No,
Do
not yet.
No.
It is so much fun.
If you're listening to this, don't buy the hype. You say it's good, you're going to ruin your relationship.
No.
Wait, did that happen?
With people.
As long as people listen to me and say, yes, chef, then we're good.
Yes, chef.
And no one's going to.
No.
This is how you destroy marriages, accidentally.
I want to play that game.
You don't play this with your spouse.
Play with your worst enemy.
Okay. Thank you.
No, you play it with friends that y'all can get over some. No, do not. You will ruin relationships.
Isn't
with
there a
That's
second
what I'm
one?
saying. Tread very
Yeah, there's
carefully.
a second one, and I've heard really good things about it. I haven't played it, though.
Awesome.
Speaking of couch co-op,
Okay.
Our annual couch co-op event is happening again this year, and we have scheduled it. I have already purchased my tickets to come and be with the guys the second week of June.
Second week of June, baby. It's quickly approaching. We've got work to do.
We've got
First
a lot of
all,
work to do.
We do.
Our team
Dustin's
has a
gonna-
lot of work to do.
our-
Start on.
what was her
getting on
name?
it, guys.
What was our assistant's name?
Our assistant's name? Jill.
Jessica.
I don't remember what it was.
Lady Jessica. Dustin's going to be joining us in Austin, and it's just fun. If you may have caught last year, we did it the year before as well. This will be our third one, so we just play a lot of games and hang out with chat all day.
Yeah.
Good retro gaming content that's just fun and fresh. We'll do some of the things that are already beloved that you guys have enjoyed in the past. We'll try some new things and bring you all kinds of entertainment, hang out with the community. It's always a highlight of our year, and we can't wait to share it with y'all.
Again, it is going to be the second week of June, so mark your calendars accordingly. And as we get a little bit closer, we'll give you all of the details and the information that you need to know. Unlike our retro game of the week, Rondo of Swords.
Overview.
Rondo of Swords is a tactical turn-based strategy RPG, sort of in the vein. I mean, I
Why
know
are
I
you
used
unsure?
a lot of words there, and you're making faces at me. Sort of in the vein of like a Fire Emblem. It's a
Exactly
large
in the vein.
Sort of.
not exactly.
It's
There
not
are
exactly.
some very distinct differences. We're not to that part of the episode yet. Let me cook. This game came out on the Nintendo DS, so you get twice as much fun because twice as many screens, which is how math works. It was developed by Success, published by Atlus, and came out in 2008 here in the States, 2007 for the original release.
The
Yeah,
end.
and this game, the end, that's everything you need to know.
Success. Do you know them?
I don't know them. I know Failure very well,
Also,
but I've
I
never.
don't know anything about
How
it.
ridiculous calling your company Success. That's really like just
I'm pretty sure there's a school here somewhere that's like a charter school that's something like it's like Success Academy, and I can't.
Success. The only thing that I saw, which is
I'm
also
looking.
still silly, is that they were outsourced to make a PC version of Metal Gear Solid
Oh,
2.
2,
So
yeah.
that's one thing they
I saw
did.
that too, and I don't know if anyone played that version.
But
Kingdom Hearts
Atlus,
X? What?
What?
What is?
We've played some Atlus titles.
Oh yeah.
though.
Atlus is a little bit more known. So Trauma Center was Atlus.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Persona series is Atlus. So like they're a little bit more well known than the development team. At least to me, I don't know Success.
I don't either. But what's
None of us do.
what was more kind of surprising to me was that child me missed this game not because I was looking for Success or Atlas games, but because I was playing Fire Emblem, and I loved the Nintendo DS, and so I'm like, how did I miss this? But there, looking back,
being a DS guy, I figured you would have been familiar with this title. I wasn't because it wasn't my thing.
but there's so many DS games, so like I'm sure I missed 3 other Fire Emblem like DS games, So I don't know. I hearing Kenny, you said it in the first play, and that was my initial thought whenever Dustin told us this game was Fire Emblem at home. You said that phrase, and that was my worry going in. But yeah, I would have been looking for this game, and I just missed it back in the day.
My question to both of you that you might not know the answer to, did Fire Emblem start this kind of thing, or was it just super successful, so it was like the one that everybody thought of or pointed to?
I think Shining Force comes out.
I think more the
before it.
second.
We played Shining Force.
Yeah, we did, and I
There
had
were
it on
definitely
PC.
some sort of like large cast tactical RPGs, I think, before
Yeah.
Fire Emblem.
Maybe they definitely popularized it, and it.
They're the mainstream,
Yeah.
well-known sort of example of that once it hit its legs and stride.
There's a lot of story here, but you can summarize it for us, Kenny.
There's not that much actual story. It's all given in terrible text blocks and then sort of implied in dialogue. You're a prince. What is this guy's
reading
name?
it for the first
I don't do names. No, I don't know.
His name's
names.
Chris.
His name's Chris. You're Prince Chris. And
Mr. Rondo.
Mr. Rondo.
His name is Rondo of Swords, actually, and every time somebody says something, they have to say Rondo of Swords.
Mr. Swords.
Mr. Sword.
If you're not gonna give the story,
give me a story if you want, but I don't.
Well, I will, but I do have to take a slight excursion and just say, when it is your overview time, you need to come prepared for our 8-year podcast. Secondly,
listen, I'm prepared to talk about this game.
No, you're prepared to read Wikipedia, and on this page, I caught you, and on this page, it does not have the story, which it typically does, so you're screwed.
Certainly supplement with Wikipedia.
I've never been on Wikipedia.
Secret.
I'm a teacher, and I don't think that it is an appropriate source.
I'm gonna start having ChatGPT write summaries, and then you can deal with it.
That would be better than not doing that. But also, good luck pulling Brettwald out of your brain trying to DS the
plot doesn't matter.
The plot does matter here. It's a big story. It's a big. Some would argue too much story. You are Surdic. Kind of, because
that's what I said.
You were actually
almost
the prince's body double, which you find out in a flashback, which is kind of cool. Which is fun. So the prince.
Although, is that confusing? Because they also give his name as Surdic. No, I followed it, but it's like Prince Surdic and then Surdic.
The idea was that it's supposed to fool people. That's the point of him, including the player, is what I was picking up on. Is like that was, the theme.
They don't tell you that until after like the first or second battle, anyways. So
I thought it was cool.
You, for all intents and purposes, you're the prince as the kingdom is being invaded, but you're the body double, and so you're able to escape while we think the prince has been slain and the whole royal family, and so you and a few guardians or warriors are fleeing, which we'll talk about. But and you, as your kingdom is being invaded, you are passed the holy blade from the prince.
You're not going to tell me that Margus and Kay are your warriors' names?
Nice. He was able to look it up in that amount of time. Yeah. He was able to
No, because those are just easier to remember than freaking Sedgwick.
Surdic, and you are now on a quest with a small merry band of warriors, and you'll recruit more over time to reclaim the kingdom of Brettwald, I believe, which...
Yeah.
Ooh,
you
a little German.
And
probably
Playboy and the girl from Frozen...
What is he on about?
He's trying to contribute now. He feels bad for not coming prepared.
No, I'm making fun of the characters here. They're terrible.
Gameplay.
You want to use your stylus on a DS game?
Not this one.
Not this one.
I don't.
Get wrecked. Actually, you can. You can.
Sure, you can.
But you don't want to have
the... I want to have the option.
But you can press a button. Look. Okay, then you love this because
honestly, this should have had stylus support. The whole gimmick calls for stylus
drawing
support.
Someone moving.
Yeah, you're doing like movement in a specific like shape over a grid system is the gimmick for the. I say gimmick. That actually isn't gimmicky at all. We need to talk through that system because it's kind of cool, but. That should absolutely have stylus support. No reason not to.
We're doing a lot of alluding right here. Let's first set the scene, and then we can talk about like what they did or didn't do and what we like or don't like. But the setup is not unfamiliar to those that have played games like this. Fire Emblem is one we'll reference quite heavily. But you have a scenario, and in that scenario, you are leading a troop, and so you have various warriors that move a different amount, that have different attacks. Some do magic, some do melee, some are on horses and can move a lot further. So it's that kind of setup, and you go through and select each unit and select their moves, and then you watch all of those play out, and then the enemies do the same. The thing that's a little bit different here, considerably different here, watch Kenny's first play, and you'll be able to figure out with him how to actually do this.
You make fun. This is a tutorial required game.
There is no tutorial.
There absolutely is.
Did you do it?
Yeah, not in the first play. After I failed at it,
Oh.
I jumped into the game blind. The tutorial is massive for teaching
Okay.
you how to not fail.
I don't
like
know
did.
if the tutorial is necessary. It's just, hey, if you try one thing and it doesn't work, try another thing. Don't try the same thing over and over
The
and over again.
tutorial is super important because there's a ton of obscure concepts here that this game does that other games don't do. They tried very hard to
The
be
main
unique.
mechanic here that is not incredibly obscure but is different is that you are passing through the enemies that you're fighting. So rather than...
And your allies, if you need to heal.
And your allies, but rather than getting next to and then selecting a fight option, you are selecting your movement, and then as long as you passed through an enemy or a teammate, you watch then the animation on the top screen as those characters move through and either get a buff or attack. And you do that rinse and repeat until you either meet the victory condition or you meet the defeat condition. And you do that a number of times in a number of scenarios.
Me no likey.
It's always with you. Okay, so with Kenny, it's always unclear. Don't answer the question. With Nolan, it's always, here's my immediate feelings towards this game.
Well, let me be more specific then. The mechanic of going through targets rather than going up to them and attacking them. That is what I find so alien and an odd choice. It is different than Fire Emblem. It makes it a little more distinct. But I think it hurts the overall approach to strategy with this game, which is the main point of these strategy games. It's
strategy games?
It's like there is strategy to it, but it causes you to think unorthodox in an unorthodox way, and I don't love it. I don't think it makes a lot of sense.
Strong disagree. I think this system is the best thing this game has to offer. It's not done perfectly. It has issues, but it's unique. I love that they just didn't take a play out of everybody else's book and just do the normal sort of set of combat. And I love that it makes you think in unorthodox ways. That concept of how you're routing, but sort of risk and reward of where you land, of which way you approach the enemies, of the fact that you can attack multiple enemies at once, of the fact that your mobility is limited, so it's sort of a resource, but you can do those, like take the time to move over an ally and get those support skill upgrades, or you can not and have extra movement to kind of get a little bit further. All of the types of things it's trying to accomplish here, I feel like have so much potential to make for a really, really, really good game.
The system is called the route maneuver system. That's what they call it, the RMS. And again, you're passing through. When you select a character, you can see kind of their data sheet, and it will tell you how many moves they can do. 6 blocks, 7, 8, whatever, which change depending on the type of terrain you're moving through, but they only tell you percents, which this is ridiculous. But you then see an arrow as you move your D-pad, not your stylus moving the cursor, but as you move the D-pad, it shows you the arrow and the blocks that you can move. And it's blue. And if you try to move too far or in an area that it wasn't, the arrow will turn red. But you're able, theoretically, to pass through many enemies. And attack all of them.
and you can heal and attack in the same move with some characters too, which is huge to work into your strategy. But back to the movement thing, which is straight from Fire Emblem. You move your characters, whatever. But I super agree with you, Kenny. This was primed to use the stylus in order to draw those routes, because that's the pathing is so important here. Pathing in Fire Emblem is insignificant, actually. It just matters where your destination is in Fire Emblem and what terrain you're going to be standing on, right?
Right.
Or terrain prevents you from moving somewhere. It's very straightforward. But here, the route actually has, so it matters. And so I would have liked to draw that. I'm surprised Fire Emblem on DS didn't implement that, because you can't do that there either. It's D-pad, which is fine. But, it's there, and it's like, you don't use it at all. And like, I'm not going to complain about it. I know it bothers y'all that we've played some DS games where it's just the stylus doesn't exist, and that's the whole point of the console. I'm not going to fault them for that, but like here, it's like, come on, it was like a gimme. But the system itself just takes a completely different brain approach in order to succeed here, which isn't a bad thing, but it's just not my thing.
You have to think about it very differently, and you have to think sort of very much kind of turns ahead.
Yes.
Because this is very turn-based.
Yes.
You go and you do all of your things, and then the enemy goes and does all of their things. And this game also very heavily favors whoever is sort of actively attacking. You do damage, and you do damage fairly freely, which means if you're letting yourself take damage, it becomes pretty dangerous pretty quickly. So you have to be very cautious with where you stand, with where you place your troops, with how they are close enough to each other to let you sort of use those support skills, but account for what the enemy's going to do. And then there's even more nuance, and we'll get into some of that as we get more advanced, but there's ways you can kind of manipulate who the enemy is choosing to attack. You can interact with terrain because you're having to pass through someone to attack. If an enemy can't pass through you, if you're at the end of an alley where you have two walls beside you and a wall behind you, you can't be attacked. Anyways, there's a lot that goes on with the implications of how they implemented this system.
And if you don't take all of this into consideration, you will get a game over twice within your first play, or twice within the first mission.
Yeah.
Because
Easily.
in the first mission, you are supposed to run away. That's what they tell you. I think it is possible to win there, but you have to move perfectly.
And is actually like the optimal way to play for people that really know the game well. All those really strong characters, getting all that early experience, all the items they drop. It totally sets you up for a successful run through if you decide to like full fight that first fight. But you shouldn't if you're just like playing this game blind.
Let me say about that, I was so happy to see the first victory condition is not rout the enemy. Fire Emblem, the franchise, for a good minute there, got away from their unique win conditions, which were like seize the throne or escape or like capture or rescue these allies or protect these allies for a certain amount of turns. Those are interesting. Yep. Those are engaging and fun. Rout the enemy's not fun. They're getting back to it with the newer games. But like in here, the first mission, I was like, yes, escape, yes. Avoid enemies. I love interesting win conditions.
I would typically dislike the very first one being run, but I think they did it well here because you're still fighting soldiers on your way out. Yeah. It's not just a complete escape, like you were going to fight some soldiers. So I thought, honestly, that it was a pretty basic but understandable tutorial. I know Kenny's saying there was a tutorial, but
it certainly is not a tutorial, but it's a great first mission.
I was confused, but within 5 minutes or so, I knew what was going on. And you're supposed to leave. What I don't love about that mission and almost every single other one, and it was so annoying to me, was that you would start with a victory condition. You would make considerable progress towards that specific victory condition, like leave this exit or make it to this spot. And
then they change it on you.
Almost inevitably, they would turn that and you would have to go to a totally different place on the map or do something different. That's not good.
Yes, it is.
It's good. It's good when it happens once or twice. When it's every single mission, that's not good.
I will give it to you, actually. I love a good twist on that where you're like, oh no, and it's situational, but I do think they used it like oddly
heavily
often. It was weird.
Way too often.
I think that's strange. Something else that was really different here for me, coming from Fire Emblem, is that in Fire Emblem, you have your weapons and your items, your tomes and your staves that are limited to how many uses are on the item and on the weapon. But here, you have an MP bar, which is a lot more traditional RPG style, which is not in other tactical RPGs that I know of. And also, these games give you a lot of insight and information into like your character stats and numbers. And so people that like, to play the numbers game with these will enjoy that. And that's here. But the values are like way higher than I'm used to. Like I'm used to, 25 HP being high for a unit, but here it's in the hundreds, and then you have an MP bar, which was just, it threw me off. It was different to not have limited use kind of combat.
You're never going to be using your MP bar, though. At least my experience. Here we'll go. I think it's a good time to go there. I think one of the worst things about this game is not the route maneuver system. I think that's a unique and interesting take. I think I'm more on Kenny's side. I don't know if I prefer it to the Fire Emblem's style, but
it's fine.
But it's fine. Story fine. All of those things fine. The thing where I think it really misses it is in the level design.
Yeah.
Because I'll say a few things about that, but the way that it's set up, with archers being at a certain range where they don't move and then have crazy range, and so they're going to pelt your characters as you're running in, which is rough, no matter how you try to go in. And then the numbers are not always numbering. Like, you might have 8, but you're not going to be able to move 8 sometimes. Or the enemy, like, the amount of times I'm just having to hover over the enemy to see that they move 6, and then count out 6 blocks to see where they're going to probably end up, and me having to be just outside of their range, but then still somehow every once in a while passing through me. I just think all of that, like, the map doesn't math, and the way that the levels are set up cause you to either have to do so much guesswork / math, or to replay that same scenario over and over and over until you get it right. And then within that, I'll throw in one more. The reason why I even brought this up in the first place is because the mages, I love that idea, but you can only use their abilities before you move, which you'll never be able to do. You have to move to get into position to be able to use your magic.
That was their attempt at balance. Yeah.
Oh, that is disgusting.
Yeah.
That you can't. Once you move, you can't use items on anybody. Once you move, you can't use any kind of magic. You have to do that before. But this is all about a maneuvering into position kind of game. But if you can't do that, and the mages didn't have enough movement to ever even get into battle because my other guys are on horses moving 8 when my mage can only move like 4. That was all of these things are in the like construction of this game. I think is the biggest fault of this entire design.
Yes. It's a game that is going to require, if you really want to, you have to learn the nuances. You're saying some of the enemies can do things that you're like, you're not allowed to do that, or I'm limited to something. It's like small hidden things too, that you'll have to learn over time, which some people enjoy. But I am of the opinion that like the setup of the rules of the game should be very straightforward and stay consistent, and the level design should actually shine here because of the movement system. And I do think some of the stages, I do like the design of them. I don't love open field, straightforward, basic kind of levels. I like when there's narrow paths, like you were saying, Kenny, and bridges to maneuver around. Those were some of the better moments. But yeah, it's like you'll have to invest a lot of like time of like trial and error and maybe digging on the internet, which there's not a lot of info on this game compared to Fire Emblem, to like figure out those nuances.
In fairness, the tutorial does teach you some of those advanced topics, and
what?
They aren't perfect, but some of the ways the game expects you to account for who the enemy and who they're targeting is by doing things like manually manipulating your character's MC yourself, so that you choose who the target is, and that you know where the enemy's going to be running and can move their routing a lot.
They just don't give a lot of visibility into that info.
It's not.
As much as Fire
It's clunky. It's a kind of hidden mechanic. It's super important to understand, but they definitely don't highlight it. Things like understanding how like zone of control works and which characters have it and which ones don't, and using that to protect some of your characters when you can and not getting yourself cornered are things that are explained but not super well, and so you got to kind of get into the weeds about them. They were very ambitious in trying to do something unique here, and I think they almost got there, but practically, you're right, Dustin. It is a hard game. Like, even if you understand all of those things, you're gonna have to play really, really well to not fail and have to repeat. And I think there's some concessions here for that, because, like, if you start a scenario and you make progress and then have to start it again, you keep the experience you earned from the first time that you failed.
Gloomhaven.
I don't know if you guys realize that.
Is that even if you fail completely?
I think that's just if you're restarting.
Right.
It
the guide that I was following was like, sometimes you might just need to clear all the enemies and then restart and do it again because you keep your experience. I didn't know if that was true for if you lose.
Tactical RPG.
Which allows for a gimmicky answer to the difficulty of this game. You shouldn't have to ever do that.
Right.
Like, that's a bad answer. So I'm not condoning
but there
it.
Is
but
an
I'm
answer.
just like,
sure.
There are answers to the fact that this game is hard, but those answers tend to be kind of gimmicky. Hey, if you find a one-way corner and, like, you can put one of your enemies right in the back and let a bunch of guys come at you one at a time until they can't attack you, sure, you can clear a bunch of enemies that are way stronger than you by playing a gimmick. But if you're playing this game properly, sort of as intended, it's going to be hard, and you're going to have to learn every single little nuance. You're going to have to use skills at the appropriate time, which we didn't even really talk about. You're going to have to find a way to use that magic, but by making sure your enemies are moving to you and not attacking your magic user. It's just, there's a ton of complexity here, and it's all kind of obtuse.
It's more trial and error than I think it needs to be. A game like this shouldn't be throw everything against the wall until you accidentally win. It should feel good to approach with the, like, strategy in mind. And sure, you could fail once or whatever, but, like, it just feels like a guessing game sometimes.
And I just explained all of those sort of, like, quasi hidden mechanics. They're taught, but they're not, like, super overt, especially if you're just, like, jumping in and playing. And we didn't even talk about all of them. There's over breaks, which are kind of like limit breaks for your characters, but that build up and then have specific levels. There's items you can use. You're choosing which skills you level up. There's a ton of stuff going on here, and some of it's very interesting, and some of it is just trying and completely missing the mark, and it never feels like it comes together to be completely cohesive, at least in a way that's not, like, punishing or that makes you not, like, metagame or lean on gimmicks, which is unfortunate.
Let's talk about an important part of these games that they got correct. Or I say correct. They did the same as Fire Emblem, and that is flat, boring anime characters. Because you are coming across many in these games, and your army is growing and your teams is growing. Overall, in this game, I'm not beaten it, and I'm not super far, but I am picking up on the fact that your squad, your team, is far smaller than a typical Fire Emblem loadout.
23.
I just mean per
total, I think.
23 total.
You can go up to
23
6,
total, which is a lot smaller than 130 or whatever.
Yeah,
right.
I was also referring to just like one specific chapter, like how many you take with you is overall lower.
Yeah, I think 6 is a full party to, like, go into
which
a
is
quest.
like a challenge in FE. But the characters themselves, my experience, none stood out. The archetypes are there, but with this movement system, I feel them so much less than I want to. With the mages, with the cavalry units, I mean, with everyone just running through enemies, it takes away some of that, like, my mage is a backline heavy hitter, but glass cannon, I miss that, and I feel like, they're doing their thing here, but the archetypes of the characters start to take a back seat, which sucks.
Yeah. I love some of the concepts, the underlying idea of, like, support skills, and you can be leveling up sort of your support stuff or your, like, individual skills, and then you have to route your people through each other, where it's almost like a fist bump, go get them,
Yeah.
you know, almost sort of a bardish
No, I like that
kind
sort of
of,
things.
you know, like party buff approach to play could be super interesting and is fun here and intriguing, but it ends up being sort of one other thing you sort of have to think about that almost becomes more of a limitation than a help when you're already working on so many other pieces of like positioning and moving parts and, you know, limited amount of movement. And it I don't know, it was interesting, but it never quite clicked.
Sacred Stones might be an improper or unacceptable comparison, but like I
fine.
don't remember all their names. Gillian, maybe I do. Is that
Yeah,
so? Like,
Gillian, baby.
But like
Night
they
Lord.
had specific archetypes and
Yes.
really played well in there. If I'm thinking Gillian or is the same,
knight.
he can't move far,
Yeah.
but the damage that he can do is significant. I remember a father and a son, and them having
Garcia
like a
and
unique.
Ross.
That's funny,
Yes.
but
It's a little unfair. You can't tell me that Horn Dog isn't an archetype and that they don't nail it with the Margus or whoever here.
his class was Horn Dog.
No, I'm just saying his
Oh.
character.
Oh,
Like
I thought
he was so
I didn't come. I didn't connect. Oh no,
no, he was just so flat and like
Yeah.
the whole like all I'm interested in is the
you're
ladies.
not
like,
following
as
me.
a
You're just
plot
talking.
gimmick.
My point is that I think Fire Emblem has relatively flat characters, and I think Rondo also has relatively flat characters that I'm not remembering
Right.
the name. I'm not going to remember the names or the characterizations. But what I am saying about the Fire Emblem is that their archetypes were something that, like, although I might not remember their names exactly, although more names are coming back to me, which is crazy. But like I'm remembering how I used them in battle, and they were so different and unique that gave them a unique identity here. Because everybody but like your ranged people or magic people are running through people. It doesn't make them very different is what is
Right.
what I think Nolan was saying, and
Yeah.
what I'm kind of connecting to, so that like they don't really have their own unique identities. They're all just like throw them through the
Yeah,
enemies.
their personalities
I see-
are irrelevant. I knew they were
Right.
going to be corny and lame. So
Sure.
are the Fire Emblem ones. Some of them,
Sure.
some Fire Emblem games have fantastic story and characters, but not most of them. And so I
Yeah,
expected
see, I kind of disagree. I have more problem with the fact that the characters are flat
sure.
than anything else. It's a huge cast and it's phoned in over the top anime.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, one-dimensional characters that have really forced interactions with each other to try and make the world fleshed out and feel big, and then it's not. But then I actually felt like and again, they're all similar archetypes, but you had your defensive players that had, you know, defense up kinds of skills that you could put in your front line and load up with your defensive items and could survive a couple attacks a little bit better. You had the cool support skills where you're running through each other in the proper kinds of ways and you don't want to separate from each other so I don't know. I don't feel like I felt as much of that as you did. I agree that the using your magic and your ranged characters ends up being really clunky. And yes, they could have done that archetype even more, but I don't know. I felt like there was some unique ways to utilize your people properly in combat.
Aged.
I think the graphics are fine. There's nothing terrible with them. I like the animations. I like the top screen. Look, I don't think every game on the DS necessarily has to use the stylus. I prefer it if we're gonna have a DS game use a stylus. But what I do want is utilize both screens. They do that some here by putting the run through animation always shows up on the top screen, and I think it's fine
Poorly.
and fun. No, why?
Yeah, I agree with you is what I'm saying.
Oh,
Yeah, they don't use the two screens well.
Oh, and
Okay.
here I'm about to destroy
Having
it all.
one entire screen that just says touch to skip animation is
Just during the
such a
animation?
waste of real estate.
it's
There's-
it's just in the like 5-second animation.
there's areas where like you've got something interesting happening like in the background and then characters pop up to talk about them,
But it's on the same
but
screen.
it happens over the
Yeah.
action when you have another screen that's
Yeah,
completely
that's
void
not
of
great.
real estate. They could have put those same
Y'all,
characters on the other
This
screen
is Success
and it would have.
Studios. This ain't Konami.
But I'm saying like it's a really low hanging through decisions to have two screens and to use them both in ways that make sense and aren't a waste. And they just didn't optimize there at all. I'm totally in Dustin's camp on this one. Poor DS implementation.
That, okay, imagine a Fire Emblem on the GBA where all you see is the top, well, what we saw on the grid screen. And all the numbers are hidden unless you hover over somebody and tap R, and then it pulls up a screen that covers the whole
Fire
screen.
Emblem?
Yeah. So when the two-screen thing happened with DS, and we got Shadow Dragon, which was a remake of a previous Fire Emblem, and you had a screen that had the numbers permanently on it, bro.
Yeah, it's nice.
It's nice. And sure, if there was some cool animation they could like span both screens like Layton does, maybe that'd be cool. But I think unnecessary. I think the functionality of having that second screen dedicated to important information, I'd much prefer to have that. And I'll say on the graphics, yeah, I think they're quite good actually for a DS game. DS games sometimes had really trash, hard like outlines. This was pretty good. It actually doesn't look like a DS game to me on the surface, which is a good thing.
Yeah, in the cases where the second screen was like good and informational, I didn't hate it. My complaints were about just other sort of places they could have optimized better. And I agree, didn't look bad. I thought the visuals were nice. In fact, Dustin, you talked about liking some of the animations. I think so too. I think the characters work pretty well.
I do think the running
like the visuals here are fine.
Everybody's animation is silly. It's just like
it's just basic. They're not actually running.
Like,
it's just like taking an image and moving it across the screen.
I don't know.
But
yeah,
I think it serves its purpose. I think everything looks good and looks fine. Like nothing looked bad for me.
You can't tell me you didn't at some point though just start skipping all of those animations just for time.
Veteran FE players turned off animations before they saw the first one.
That's really
we don't watch animations.
Right, that's what I'm saying. And like if you're going to do something like take the time to animate this, and I'm not saying they should have, and I get it would have been a different game, but if you're taking the time to like do the run by animation, give yourself a tiny sort of quick time style event where you're hitting a specific button at a specific time for a small
crit.
bonus.
Honestly, I wouldn't have hated
and then a
that
slightly shorter screen, and don't make it skippable.
Kenny always developing better ideas.
And use the stylus as the indicator, like draw.
Right. Or you've got to be the character that's doing the support skill, and either it works or doesn't based on your input. Like there's so many ways that you could have just taken it one step further and made it work. And it doesn't work.
It's on the screen where like it shows up in a random spot, but if you click it with your stylus fast enough, it does the crit. That's exactly how we just better developed this game.
They should have called us, honestly.
I will connect my feelings towards the graphics and animation, which I thought were good and fine, nothing great, nothing abysmal, with the music. I also thought that it completely served its purpose. It's nothing that I'll fully remember. Some of it was like a lot over and over again, but nothing was bad. I thought it was good and fine.
Sound effects weren't distracting, but fit what was going on. The theme was, set. You felt like you were there. It never like grated on me, but I also wasn't like bopping to it.
I also just again wasn't expecting it to be, insane. If it was fine. And I won't even mention Fire Emblem. I'll just say this was fine. That's it.
You did mention Fire Emblem just then.
Well, I could have said something about Fire Emblem music, but there's no point. Like, this is fine.
I guess we've talked about it. I just want to reemphasize that on the DS, either use the stylus or use both screens. Obviously, you can use both, and they do use both some in this, but I felt like it could have been done better. I know we said that.
Yeah. Well, especially since I want to remind our audience that we all got setups. We have DSs. Dustin's holding his. I'm holding mine. Kenny has his somewhere. And it's so nice to play retro games on the original hardware, which we rarely get. There it is. He pulled it out of his pants, everybody.
Why do we all have white ones, by the way?
Oh, because I don't know. That was the cheaper one, actually, than the black one. It's just really nice to play retro games on original hardware. Like it's the best, and we most of the time don't get to do it. And even if we did, you also have to have a CRT to get the true experience. So it's great when we get a DS pull on the podcast, but I'm with you, and especially because y'all have so much less experience with this console, I want y'all to play some of the really touch-heavy ones that get bonkers, but are so fun because of it. This just wasn't one of it, and a lot of good games didn't utilize the stylus. I hate to break it to you. I mean, we're talking about Fire Emblem, not using it much. You can click on stats to get a little like blurb about what the stat does or something, which is nice, but you're not drawing, you're not slashing, so
the two-screen thing is way more important to me than the stylus thing.
I think stylus is can be a little bit more gimmicky. I mean, think Trauma Center. And since I've owned this physical and tried to play Trauma Center, it's extremely difficult, and the stylus doesn't always report where you're touching. So I would rather not do stylus than have some of that. So this is probably not going to surprise you, but Rondo of Swords doesn't have a series, so this didn't spawn anything. There's no prequel nor sequel. There's no spiritual successor. This was an attempt to do a Fire Emblem like, and it was a one and done. If you want a copy for your Nintendo DS, it will be $23 used or loose and $95 new.
95. That's about right.
If you want one of these little cartridges, it's going to be $23 or $95.
And you can also play it.
Final thoughts.
At the end of each and every one of our episodes, we determine whether or not the game gets our vote for New Game Plus status, which is our general thumbs up or thumbs down. It does require 2/3 of the vote to swing one way or the other. I'll begin by saying that these style of games are typically too slow for me. That's a weird thing to say because I don't like the rapid, crazy stuff either. But it takes a lot. It's a lot of mental fatigue for me to do all the math and to do all the planning. What I didn't like here was having to, before every move, go and hover over or click on the enemies to see what and to guess what they're going to do, to then plan my route, to move slowly, waste turns, let them come to me, then cycle through them, and then have to do it again when I inevitably lose, because it's not easy, and then it's not easy to understand, and you put those two together and it makes just for a very, very, very difficult, repetitive experience. Maybe if I would have done what Kenny would have done and done the tutorial, then maybe I would have understood some of these mechanics better. But I had a walkthrough pulled up, and I thought I understood what was going on for the most part, having some Fire Emblem Legacy experience, thanks to Nolan and this podcast.
You're welcome.
I don't mind. I don't think the big problem here is the routing menu, is that kind of system. I think it's a fun little take. But when everything was kind of just the same, and then with the difficulty tacked on and the obtuseness and obscurity of what's actually going on and the math behind it all, I just didn't have fun doing the same scenario over and over and over again until I did it right. And then with that, the story and characters weren't enough to hook me in. So this game, I don't think it's abysmal. It's just completely forgettable. And if they would have done some of the stage designs better, if they would, there's a few tweaks there they could have made that would have made this a good competitor to Fire Emblem. But I think they missed it, and so I don't give it my vote for New Game Plus status.
Yeah, I'm gonna add on my own very disappointed New Game Plus status, but I want to sort of explain that. I think of any game we've played, the potential versus delivery disparity was higher here than any other game we've played. I think this had so much potential to be interesting. I love the route maneuvering system. I don't think it was implemented perfectly. I do think there are other things that they absolutely did wrong. But this one, for me, had so much promise, and yet it kind of ultimately wasn't able to deliver on that promise. I love the underlying battle system, but the implementation of how it actually works in practice ends up vacillating between interesting and obtuse, between rewarding and gimmicky, between challenging and unfair. And it just couldn't pick a lane. Like, with a little bit more fine tuning to get some of those annoyances under control, and some improvements on how they tell the story, the just wall of text and then like really shallow character dialogues there were too many of them for no reason, didn't pull you into caring about these characters at all. And then you're already suffering through the difficulty here. Oh, this one was so close to being a banger. If this was the alpha phase of the game and they had tweaked a whole bunch of stuff, I think it could have been like an all-time winner. But it's not quite there. And it's not going to quite hook people, and it's not going to quite be bearable, and so I can't quite recommend it. And it breaks my heart. No New Game Plus.
It's 2 no's, so you don't matter, Nolan, but still would love to hear your thoughts. Especially, the Fire Emblem boy here.
I thought it was going to be a ripoff of Fire Emblem, and what I found was that I found a esoteric, like, attempt at trying to coexist with it, but not also, like, they didn't really care to be like, oh, we're doing the Fire Emblem thing.
Ooh.
I think these people truly, like, with the what is the system freaking called? I'm just blanking. The movement system where you like go through
in this one?
The routing system.
Yeah, the routing.
I think the thought behind that was like big brain and like, oh no, we actually really enjoy and mess with some tactical strategy and love Fire and respect Fire Emblem and brought some of the elements over. But so I think a handful of people that might click with like really well. Kenny said he was almost there. For the masses, and I include myself in that because I think Fire Emblem is an acquired taste, but it's also like the example of these kinds of games, and that's okay. I do think it's a hard sell, and my biggest issue with it was that one of my favorite things about Fire Emblem is building up my team. You connect with some of the characters maybe because of their gimmick, but you also connect with what they do and how they evolve and promote into their next class and their strengths and weaknesses. I love the strategy behind that, and here I got very, very little of it when I was just throwing my characters through other units, kind of without any thought or reason. And for that, it's just it kind of falls flat as a tactical RPG for me. So no New Game Plus, pretty handily, actually. I wanted to like it a lot. I think some will. It's just a weird one.
And that's coming from Nolan.
Yeah.
There was a lot of grace there, I thought. Not just like...
I don't despise it. I really don't. I think it's a really solid attempt. It's just, it's weird.
Because I could have seen you coming in saying, don't try to be my game, my Fire Emblem.
I know.
But... that means that Rondo of Swords is not New Game Plus certified, but what did you think on YouTube? 10% said yes, it's worth playing, which is more than I would have thought. 5% say no, go play something else, and 86% have never played it before.
I think that 10% really likes it.
I think the 10% thought this was Rondo of Blood.
No, you're right. Oh, no.
They saw Rondo and said, yes. We had many in our community play along with us this week, sending their thoughts on Rondo of Swords. Sam's Club Hot Dog said the second Nolan said Rondo of Swords looked like a knockoff Fire Emblem, I was intrigued. I went into this game expecting to hate it, and while I do dislike most of it, I'd say it's more disappointing because there are some decent ideas here. Here's what I dislike. The game just throws you in at the beginning with no way of knowing how anything works. The characters are so shallow and not at all fleshed out or made up to be interesting in any way, which makes it impossible to feel any attachment to them. The battle mechanics seem interesting at first until you start to see the many flaws, such as not being able to attack or use any item after you move. As a Fire Emblem fan, it is hard to find fun in many other strategy RPGs, but even if I wasn't a Fire Emblem fan, I still wouldn't want to play this game. No GP from me.
Yeah. Like,
that was like our summary.
Yeah.
It's like you almost have to have the Fire Emblem context, and then you have to get lucky, or the game has to get lucky if it lands or not with you. Like, if you don't have that context, nah.
Compacta D said, ultimately, I ended up putting the game of the week down. It's almost fun for me, but not quite. I think the deciding factor is that this game not only expects you to throw the spaghetti against the wall to see what sticks, but also wants you to throw the spaghetti against the wall and get this specific noodle to stick. Anything else is pretty much punished. Add that the game generally lacks information needed to make meaningful decisions in between levels, and I just feel like I am going through the motions a guide tells me. No NGP from me, and if you do play this, I recommend either using a guide or clearing out a lot of time for redos.
That is a huge point that I didn't even consider to bring up. The in-between chapters, planning and in your camp and trading out. Like, that is Fire Emblem, and that's not... Like, you need that. And I did miss that.
Well, we didn't even bring up, I think there's like errands that you can do and also like go to shops, but it's not the same thing. You send out a unit to go and do those things, and it's so, obtuse. Garlow said, I think it's been a long while since I bounced off a game this hard.
Yeah,
I do not feel like its core pass attack... I do not like its core pass attack mechanic at all. Even outside its unique mechanisms are a ton of UX issues, and strategy RPGs have solved these years ago. Battle math? Hell if I get to know. Gotta press buttons and hope it does something. Movement ranges regularly go outside of what you can see when highlighting a unit, which is awful for strategizing. And while one of the best uses of the DS's second screen is displaying info, this game tries to do that. But our key information, like the game-changing ZOC, are buried in submenus instead of actually being visible. Yep. Not only that, but it opens on one of the most painfully generic intros I've ever seen. It inspires absolutely no desire to push through. No wonder this game vanished from the radar the moment it released.
I mean, that's kind of what I felt too, but I didn't want to be that harsh about it, but yeah.
And then finally, Cecil said, I do want to give Rondo of Swords some credit. It certainly goes for a novel approach to strategy RPGs, but novel doesn't always mean good. And the pass-through system might encourage more aggressive play, but it completely invalidates vulnerable support and utility units who you can't reasonably defend. It's like the structure around the game and its core mechanics are at odds with one another. That's it. And to that... Add to that some unclear battle math and bizarrely balanced skills, and of course an intro that does a poor job actually teaching you how to play, and it's so easy to just give up on the game. The art and story aren't bad, and they're certainly trying for something at least a little unique at the halfway mark, route split. But by then it's just too little too late. There's just no charm to too many of these characters, some of whom are just the worst version of their archetype. All this leading up to a sad but solid no NGP from me.
Sometimes a game just objectively ends up being felt the same by everybody. I feel like this is one. Like, reviewers back then, too, were probably like...
I could have fixed her.
Yeah, but what is so interesting to hear is that everybody is like sad to say no NGP. Like, there's...
I wanted it to be good.
Like, there's something there that was like...
Yeah.
I think, Nolan, you said it, that like the developers... We're not just copy pasting.
No.
They had a love for this genre.
Trying to do a thing.
Oh, it feels bad.
They just didn't quite get there.
Feels bad. Hey, success, almost success. But from us, it's no NGP, including our community. But it is time to set Rondo of Swords aside, close your DS lid, and put it to the side as we randomly select the next game that we're going to be playing for the next 7 days. Randomizing now. Let's go back in time to 1997.
Oh, yes, please.
This game...
On the PC? Tell me PC.
It is not PC.
Yes.
Yes. It was actually first released, I think we might be in trouble, for the Satellaview. Do y'all know what console that is?
I actually don't.
Me either.
Oh, yeah, totally.
No idea.
No.
But I
have no idea.
But then also came out for the Super Famicom. I think that this is a Japan-only release. And in fact, I'm pretty confident, based on the name,
sounds like it,
that I'm going to completely destroy as I try to say what this is. Oh, you said PC. Maybe the Satellaview is Is a PC like a computer? Let me look real quick. This is a Teleview.
Weird.
Is a satellite satellite modem peripheral produced by Nintendo for the Super Famicom. Okay, so it's an add-on for the Super Famicom. Interesting.
Huh? I've never heard of that thing.
We're gonna do a lot of research.
So is this
week.
a multiplayer game, but on like the Super Famicom?
I don't. Oh.
I mean, you said modem.
Oh.
Yeah,
it allows players to download games, magazines, and other media through satellite broadcasts provided by the Japanese company Saint Giga.
Whoa.
Interesting.
Weird.
This is a side-scrolling beat 'em up.
Huh.
Okay.
It's the fourth and final game in its series. The previous entries were for the PC Engine. So, hey, okay, this is crazy.
Okay.
It's a modem for the Super Famicom. I think we'll still be able to play it, but maybe not multiplayer this week. All right, guys. I'm going to try to pronounce this. I shouldn't, but I'm going to try for all of our sake. The game that we're going to be playing. No, the game that we're going to be playing for the next 7 days is Kaizu.
Yeah.
Chojin.
Yeah.
Shbibi Nanman?
Stop! You're making it up.
No. That was not bad. Zero.
You nailed it.
The last word is zero. The big word is SCHBIBINMAN. It's Shabibinaman. Oh, that was not bad.
No.
Yeah, it was. We're gonna put it in our Discord so that we can all find it. But this is the first one with a name that I don't even have like an English translation of. But it's the Kaizo Chojin Shibibanaman series.
Side scroller beat 'em up that you could download DLC for on the
From the satellite.
What?
In Japan only.
Okay.
Find a copy of Shabibi Zero, that's what we'll call it, and play it along with us this week.
We should be in Discord, and we
Nice.
want you to meet us there as well. All you have to do is go to you have to go to discord.gg /newgameplus.
You can also go to patreon.com to support your favorite retro gaming podcast on an ongoing basis. You'll be joining people like Tins, who joined us as a patron for the first time this week.
Tins.
Yo.
Thank you for your support. You'll also be able to hang out there. You're not really hanging out. You're hanging out in Discord, but we'll say it. With folks like our director level supporters, Bro Jim, Super Hypered, and Siegfried. Appreciate you guys. And to our large and growing list of producer level supporters, we want to say thanks as well, including Alex, Alias X, Amarlian, Antonin, Arlen, Yuki, Ben, Craig, Dustin's 5 o'clock Shadow, Garlisle, Hallex, Harold, J. Robert, Jake, Jordan, Justified, Justin, Kenny's Beard, Clen, Levi, Maxima, Megatroid, Miss Muso, Not Enough Dog, Sage and Shane, Shauna, Stephen Fox, Psycho Mantis, Thomas Turtle, Unbedavable, and Zion. We appreciate y'all's support.
You can follow us on our social media. That's Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, and YouTube. All of those links are in the show notes. Listen directly on any podcast provider of your choice. Make sure you subscribe so that you are the first to get new NGP episodes. And while you're at it, please leave a kind rating and review. Our episode artwork was created by our friend Dave. Our video episode was edited by our friend Dylan. Our audio episode was edited and produced by our friend Dan Willett. Join us next week as we play Shabibi Man Zero.
Stop.
I'm going to be interested in hearing y'all try to pronounce this.
Oh, I got this.
Until then, I'm still obtuse.
I'm still disappointed, but barely.
D4. My name's Nolan.
Oh my gosh. And this has been New Game Plus.